haven't touched this game despite being one of my early childhood memories of the PlayStation. But to tell the truth, I've just been too afraid to touch this game because it's so damn hard. Rayman, developed by Ubisoft, was originally supposed to be released on the NES or a Nintendo console, but after the transition from 2D to 3D with games like Super Mario 64, they decided it would be a good idea to shift over to disc-based hardware instead. And I feel Ubisoft made the right choice, as the graphics in this are gorgeous. All from the scenery of the flower and pink plants, and also the music is outstanding and isn't even close to possible on a Nintendo console. These games have been released on countless advanced consoles like the Atari, Sega Saturn, which were both systems that failed in sales for being too expensive for the consumer and difficult to develop games for the game developers, despite making the games itself run at 60 frames per second, because it was nearly impossible for the developers to learn how to program games on these systems, though there was a handful of gems like Nights into Dreams and so on the Sega Saturn. But the review is for another time. Now back to Rayman. But the sale for Jaguar was miserable because people couldn't afford it. How well does this game hold up today? Let's find out. This game on those versions run at 60 frames per second, while on PlayStation it can barely maintain 30 or 15, since there are a lot of frame drops. But the person people talk about as it's the one they're played, though there are some visual differences on the levels themselves, even outside of the gameplay. However, I do think the soundtrack sounds better on the PlayStation 1 disc than it does on the Atari. Rayman's design is limbless. He's purple in the middle with a white circular-like thing on his stomach, but he also has a red scarf, and eventually it became a hoodie in the 6th generation with games such as Rayman 3, Hoodlum Havoc, or the Raving Rabbids games, which are infamous for ruining Rayman's games and overall reputation. But we're not reviewing those at this moment, or even unless the demand is high. They were the reason Rayman 4 never came into fruition, and so I refused to review them. As Michael even stated, he was far too busy during Rayman 3, Hoodlum Havoc, and had to shift his attention to another franchise instead, but he did say the developers who did work on Rayman 3 did a fairly good job without him. But anyway, back on to Rayman 1. Rayman 1 is a platformer where you mostly go from point A to point B, and it's simple but hard. That is the best way to describe the controls in this game. The level design is simple to navigate, though there are mandatory cages you need to free your friends from who have been captured by Mr. Dark, who is unleashing darkness into Rayman's world, and so the player has to stop him. The enemy placement and hazards are very well put since it has the player climb on vines and avoid hazards. Incoming hazards as well as tricky enemy placements above platforms since Rayman dies instantly from drowning inside of water, and designed although towards the second world the music band lands it gets incredibly hard, and there's even big red baddie that is impossible to kill, let alone even put a hit on, which was later fixed in fan projects on Windows computers or fan remakes of this game called Rayman Redemption, where you could kill him, made by the fans. Ubisoft decided to abandon Rayman in 2013 or 2005, if you want to count Raving Rabbids, though he's made a few appearances here and there in Nintendo Smash Bros. And whatnot. This game is gorgeous graphically speaking, and I cannot stress that enough. So switching this game over to PlayStation 1 and Atari or Saturn was indeed the right choice they made here, as the game looks like a magical world and you can imagine someone like Rayman living in this one. Even though Glowbox isn't in this game, he was later introduced to Rayman 2, but I think Rayman Redemption explained Glowbox's absence, and even fixed some of the plot holes that didn't quite make this game feel like the prequel to the 3D games that came afterwards. The bosses in this game are precise to say the least, and that's about as far as I can go. The mosquito you fight in the first Woodling world is the first boss you come across, and he later becomes Rayman's friend, and even made a reappearance in Rayman 2 Revolution for PlayStation 2, where you rescue him inside of a swamp. But anyway, Rayman 1 is a masterpiece, and the reason it is a masterpiece or a gift from God in the platforming genre is because this game is beyond perfect. But I feel like Rayman 2 balanced out the difficulty more, so maybe that could be debated. but I can't really think of a flaw in this game, since games such as Dark Souls that are greedy and depressing get praised all the time nowadays. I feel it's only fair this game gets my highest score. It was truly ahead of its time, and it shows. Ubisoft really put their heart and soul into this game.